Good evening and welcome to Snetterton for round two of Porsche Cup League here live and exclusive on the iRacing UK Twitch channel. Brought to you via iRacing, the world's premier motorsport simulator. Who are iRacing UK? We're a community of enthusiastic and inclusive racers from across the UK who like to run social races, practice sessions, leagues, but most importantly share our experiences and our passion for sim racing. I'm Nick Allen, and you're here with me tonight with the Mr. Chris Rowlands for a brand new league format and something that obviously you saw here last week or 2 weeks ago, sorry, on the channel where we have some heat races for you, very much like we also did on the Race of Champions. Tonight we'll have 2 times 20 minutes, 30 car heats, so the top 10 will advance with 20 cars going into the consolation race. We've then got that one consolation race, which will be 40 cars over 20 minutes, and the top 10 then will advance through. And then we'll have a 30 car feature race to finish off, which will be 30 minutes in length, which will decide the final finishing order for our racers this evening. As always, we will be taking your questions throughout the broadcast, so feel free to drop us your messages. We love to hear from everybody watching, so post in the chat now who you're going to be cheering on and who you think is going to be victorious this evening. So, Chris, obviously, welcome to the Porsche Cup, and welcome to your first round, joining me here in the commentary box for the season. How are you feeling about it, and what are you looking forward to this evening?
Well, good evening, Nick. Good evening, everyone. Interesting for me. I've not commentated on a Sunday before. This is new territory. I'm a weekend away person, I suppose you'd say. Having been around for the Race of Champions the other week, where that was my first taste of heats racing, and I've watched the stream back from round one of this. It's just a bit more frenetic than your standard sort of sprint style race with that extra layer of strategy as well. So if you've qualified near the back in the heat race, you don't have to worry a huge amount about destroying the field in front of you because you've got that consolation round a bit further on. So we have seen good racing all the way throughout the field, and I think this heat racing format lends itself to that.
Absolutely, it certainly does. And we had some great results from some of our drivers in the last round, with Gavin Halls at the top of the order, followed by Baxter Jones, Blackwell Chambers, and Bridle. So the top three really tussling it throughout the entire final feature race that we had last week, with some other folk managing to claw their way up the order and gain a lot of places. We had a few real winners in the forms of Armstrong, who gained a lot of places, over 10 places. I think actually it might have been 12 places in the first 5 minutes of the race for Armstrong, leading into a 6th overall finish. And then we also had a Martin Robinson who gained a lot of places throughout the race, 13 I believe at one point. He'd gained another driver, very much like James, who had a very good first outing. There was the top 8 only covered really by about 3 seconds throughout a large portion of that feature race, which meant even the slightest mistake made a big difference to the front of the grid. Now, we're at Snetterton this evening, one of the UK's finest motor racing facilities. Snetterton Circuit blends a challenging and complex layout with fast straights to create a unique challenge, much of which can be viewed from a very lovely race spectator stand, offering some of the best viewing areas in the country. Now, the Snetterton 300 circuit hosts lots of rounds of things like the Quick Fit British touring cars, the superbikes. We've also got the British GT here, and there's a lot of corners that take inspiration from a number of world's leading motor racing venues. For example, you've got Turn 2 of Montreal. We've also got the one corner obviously named after Hamilton in there, and we've got the Williams corner that takes you into the Bentley straight, a long straight that we'll see hopefully some overtaking into this evening before they come into the final section of Nelson, Bombhole, and Coram before they come back up into the final straight. You've currently got the qualifying on the screen at the moment, viewers. If you're watching us on Twitch, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a follow. If you've got a Twitch account, you get a Twitch Prime subscription, which you can use for a free subscription to any channel on Twitch. But why not make it ours? We're also over on YouTube as well, so make sure you hit the big red subscribe button on YouTube. That one costs you absolutely nothing, and give us a like on the video, a lovely little thumbs up for us. Now, Chris, the qualifying underway at the moment. Who do you think we're going to see at the top of the order?
It's sort of anyone's game, really. You'd expect to see the guys from the top of the last round there. So as you were saying before, we've got Gavin Halls, we've got Mark Baxter Jones, Will Blackwell Chambers. I'd like to see more from James Armstrong on that front, because I tuned in sort of at the start of the final round last time out, and I was surprised to see him down where he was because we're used to on IR UK races seeing James flying out from the front. So I'm expecting him to be a bit further up the front because you saw the pace he had. He was, like you said, he'd come through loads of people, but we've got a good, I think there's a good field of over 40 drivers here tonight. So there is plenty of places up for grabs.
One guy that I really want to see up the order and doing well is Colin Wynn. Colin, a very frequent appearance in our Monday night Radical practice, and also a feature in the recent Radical League, which we've been running. So we had Colin in that race with us. So good to see him out here, also competing in the P Cup Challenge. He's been a fantastic addition to the league. We've also got some others to note in there as well, who we've seen obviously in previous IR UK leagues. So Steve Olden, one of those. We've also got Stephen Masters, John Hitchin, the Hitchin brothers, obviously famous from the GT3 league. And we've also got, I believe, also Sanford, Mr. Sanford in there, and all of his supporters in the Twitch chat, as usual. Speaking of the Twitch chat, let's go over to a few of your comments. We've got Good Luck Steve-O from Horny Mini. And then who else? We've got there? Tom Carroll. You can take our Sundays, but you'll never take our Porsches. Thank you very much. Parenthood obviously sent Tom crazy already. We've got Wee Sharky, good luck Eclipse drivers, Dougal Wits, good luck ERT. So a lot of support in there, and then there's Nat Sanford in there. Good luck all from Nat Sanford. So great to see lots of support in the Twitch chat for our drivers this evening, as we're currently now just on board. I believe we're currently with who are we with at the moment? There is that Rob. We're with? Yeah, Rob Armstrong. We're with at the moment there. So let's see how Rob tackles this lap. He's been incredibly smooth in a lot of the racing that we've seen so far from Rob in the previous race. I'm just going through my results now, just looking for Mr. Armstrong. He was number 32 in the last round, so quite far down the order for Rob. Car number 666. You'll remember that from the GT3 AM and Rookie League, where he would have that fiery devil livery normally running on his car. So Rob Armstrong, great to see him back. He's also got that today as well, I believe. So you'll be able to see that on your screens when we go to an external view eventually of Rob's car. Now, from the last race, a few more notes for you. The very start of the final round, that feature race, Blackwell Chambers got off to an absolutely thundering start with a sea of Porsches in his wake. The likes of Halls and Baxter Jones were very much in hot pursuit behind through the early stages of that race. Now, numerous drivers got caught up in some first hairpin pain, and while all that was happening in the background, Halls was actually able to get round Chambers, but that didn't last long, as Chambers assertively took back that place into the later stages of the first lap. So plenty of action to be seen throughout these heat races, and absolutely expected to see a lot more of that into the early laps. Now, Hitchin, one of the Hitchin brothers, dropped out of the order, which allowed James Armstrong into the top 10, and it was about that point that James really was underway on that charge that we said about gaining over 12 places over the race. I think in the first 5 minutes it was those 12 places. So great stuff from him. And there was actually a great fight in the middle of the pack between Exelby, Armstrong, Mould and Cox, all fighting hard for the kind of best of the rest positions inside the top 10, everywhere from 5th down to 8th. And it was a real tussle between some incredibly skilled drivers, changing places more frequently than they change their underpants in that battle. Now, what was really great to see was the amount of respect that these drivers had during that time, with very little contact or incidents being a result of any foul play throughout the Porsche Cup races that we've seen. So great stuff from all the drivers, and really looking forward to the rest of this evening. We've only got 2 minutes now of qualifying left, with Gavin Halls currently topping the order. Chris, any surprises for you there in the running at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think Johnny Elia we've got in ninth there, I think, has done very well. We've got a few others there that I'd say. I mean, the trouble is here, the Porsche Cup car is such a different car to drive in some ways in respects to, say, other GT cars, or sort of where we're from Radicals or F3 guys, where it's it's a bit difficult to tell really who's strong and who's not, and this is such a different track profile to last time out at Hockenheim. So Stuart Brown there in fifth as well, I think, is quite a good position for him in the number 3 car. Um, but we'll have to see how they get on the race. And as we've said before, it's a very technical track into Riches and Montreal on lap 1. It's not the widest, so hopefully we'll see the level of respect we saw last time out. And I wonder if that's down to the car being such a challenge to drive. But the other thing I wanted to point out before we get going is there's only the 2 long straights on this circuit, so that's the only real 2 drafting opportunities, but neither of those long straights are into heavy braking zones. So you're going to have to be very brave if you want to get an overtake done. So if you're in your heat and you're in 21st with a lap to go, it's going to take a lot of skill to get yourself directly into that final round.
Well, just a moment ago, we saw Steve Masters just demonstrating how challenging these cars can be to drive on occasion with a little bit of a spin there into the barrier. Now, hopefully, we won't see too much more of that. That was, I think, into Williams, wasn't it, as he came into the Bentley straight. So we'll see what this has in store. I mean, as you say, only 2 long straights where drafting is going to be an opportunity, but with a challenging Porsche Cup car, that really wants to throw you off the track quite frequently under braking. I'm sure we'll see plenty of action. There's a lot of margin there with not very wide curbs for him to play with in parts of the track. So we'll certainly see a few off tracks. I expect as these guys get really close. Because I mean, in the previous race we had them going as 3 or 4 wide and at certain points during the early laps, and it would not be a surprise to see that kind of thing happening again this evening. So as we get ready now for the first heat, now these guys gridding up, ready to race. We've got Gavin Halls at the front of the order at the moment, followed by Matt Cox, and there's also Stuart Brown in there as well in the mix. So this is going to be a real interesting start, I think. You mentioned Elia, he's there in 5th for the first heat, followed by Exelby. Exelby had a great outing in the first round. He was really up in the mix, fighting hard for the likes of Armstrong and others. So I'm sure we're going to see some great things from Exelby. Obviously, someone that we've seen in previous iRacing leagues, such as the, I believe, it's the F3 that we've seen him before. So brilliant stuff from all of the guys in the first round, and let's hope that gets repeated again tonight as we wait for the lights.
Yeah, it gets very tense waiting on the grid here, especially again if you're near the back of the grid and you know you need to get into that qualifying zone. Just this extra time you spend waiting really sets you on edge. You're going to be very nervous as you approach turn 1.
Looks like Stuart Brown that we're waiting for to grid at the moment. Just making everyone wait, putting that little bit of extra tensity in the air, that that extra tension that you really don't want at the start of the race when the knees are already shaking as we get ready for the start.
Do you reckon it's perhaps a deliberate strategy to psych out his competitors here?
Maybe mind games, but here he is now. It looks like we've got him on the grid, Stuart Brown there in 3rd place. So we've got Gavin Halls and Matt Cox on the front row, followed by Stuart Brown and Dan Bathy on the 2nd row, and then Johnny Elia and Rob Exelby behind them, followed by Holloway and Denny Wood. Let's see what the first round has in store as we get ready for the lights to go out. Hammer away and look at the tyres spinning on Gavin Hall's car. He's had a terrible start, which has allowed Matt Cox to get up the other side. Oh, we've got a lot of cars off at the back there. We'll have to go over to that in a moment, but as we're going to follow the front runners, it looks like Matt Cox being pushed out to the left there, and Gavin Halls has now managed to maintain that lead as we head into Montreal. He takes the inside defensive line across the front of Stuart Brown, who's managed to get it inside of Matt Cox, who's now going to be dropping back down the order a little bit. He's going to be fighting with the likes of Dan Bathy and Johnny Elliott in a moment, but he's sticking right to the back of Stuart Brown's car. Stuart Brown, who made him wait to start with that long wait to grid up, is now ahead of Matt Cox, who made a bold manoeuvre into that first corner, but it didn't pay off for him as he wasn't quite able to put enough pressure on Gavin Halls and get it done. Now, I'm sure we'll see a little bit more about that nuisance we had at the back of the order in a moment. Chris, I don't know if you happened to see who it was in particular that dropped down the order potentially from the timing screens.
I'm not sure who caused it, but Herbert O'Shaughnessy went straight back to the pit, so he certainly was the one that suffered the most from it. Also, shout out to Adam Holloway for holding his brakes because he was in 7th. Oh, there we go. That looks like that's the number 12 car. Byron Crawford, I think, was the one that got a slightly slippy start. I wouldn't necessarily say it's his fault because there's so many cars trying to get into such a narrow space. It's just one of those things. If your start is slightly wrong, then everyone else has got a responsibility to get around them safely. But again, it's those start of the race nerves.
Well, there's some damage there on the front of that 55 car by the looks of it. That is number 55, that is Stevens, Kip Stevens, I believe. And we've got Chris Hitchin dropping down the order at the moment. Car number 15, we've just seen dropping down. And then Byron Crawford also off the track. So there's a lot of people dropping on the order now. Looking at the front of the pack, Gavin Hall setting the fastest lap at the moment. He's still doing incredibly well out there, starting to grow the gap there. Car number 38, you can see dancing out ahead, and then we've got a chain of Porsches behind, vying for a second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth position battle here that is likely to go on for the duration of this race if the last rounds, but anything to go by. So that's Brown, Cox, Bathy, Elia, Exelby that you can see there in the shot, all fighting, trying to stay behind one another, trying to stay in contention, keep that slipstream, make sure that you're ready to capitalise on any lockups, mistakes or incidents that might happen in amongst that front pack. Halls is quite happy to just dance off into the front. Now look at him, 153 compared to a 155 last lap time, I believe that is by Brown. So 2 seconds the gap, and really easy for him to grow that way. These guys are busy fighting down. My question, Chris, here is Brown the one that's slowing down this chain of cars? And if he was out of the way, would the likes of Cox and Bathy and Elia be able to put a bit more pressure on Mr. Halls at the front?
It's very possible, but at the same time, if you're the guys behind him, you do not want to be taking risks here. I don't know how well these guys will know just how big their gap is, but you see down to 11th place, it's 18 seconds behind Halls. It's the top 10 that go straight through to the final round, so it's almost worth working together. Maybe, you know, there's still the glory of second place there and a higher grid position in that final race, but why throw it away when if you go off the field here, you'll be right down the order and have to get through the consolation heat.
Mr. Cox in that car 710 behind Brown, getting incredibly close into the entry of some of those corners, and he's going to have a little look around into Rich's, but I don't think he's quite ready, as you say, to make that bolder move. Maybe just thinking to himself, let's just take it easy and make sure we finish this one. Let's head now into Montreal. Lovely hairpin they've got here, the very place where Cox actually lost out that place, that second place, and then they're going to follow down into the left-hander of Palmer, and then this straight line they'll have as a run now into Agostini. Now, Craig Schill. We're going to have a little look at Craig Schill. That's car number 82, and he's just spun round. That's a spin for Craig Schill. He's managed to keep it on the tarmac. He's not hitting any walls all the way over the grass now. That is some serious off-roading. The Rallycross League isn't just yet, Craig. You'll have to come back for that later. As we go over to Elia, he is at the back of that best of the rest pack, kind of in the front order at the moment. That's car number 6 that you can see there on your screens, Johnny, Elia. Great outing in the last round of the league, and for now looks like it's just going to be maintaining position in that row of cars at the front at the moment. Now these guys have managed to dance off a little bit into the distance. Obviously there was some stress and some strife down the order, which has probably caused a bit of a gap across the field in the first round this evening.
I'll be interested to see. Oh, sorry. I'll be interested to see if Paladin he's in 11th there. It'll be interesting to see if he can catch up with Rob Sanford and Colin Wynn, because there's not as much of a gap there as there was before.
Colin Wynn, actually, I believe Colin Wynn, is he down 1 place? Jared Coleman up 7. Oh, Colin Wynn up 2 actually. So Colin has done quite well so far in this race. Anybody that managed to avoid the accident at the start, Chris, has really kind of gained quite a few places. So good to see Colin managing to get up the order a little bit as we go back to that Stuart Brown there, almost being pushed around by Cox. That train of cars. You do really wonder if it's time for Stuart to just maybe, or maybe for Cox to just get a bit brave and see if he can get it round, because that might just release him then to have a bit of free air and not have to be worried about sitting behind him and then possibly being under threat from the other car is behind him. If you look at that, about 3/10 between each of the cars at the moment. So it's an incredibly close battle, and what we don't want to see happen is something happen with Brown at the front, maybe slowing down a bit too much, but then has a chain reaction. All these guys get a bit too involved.
It does seem like the Montreal turn is the main overtaking opportunity so far. We've seen Cox on both of the last 2 laps. He stuck his nose out just to remind Brown that he's there. I mean, obviously, if it psychs him out, he'll take the place, but it doesn't look like on either occasion he's been that desperate to make the move stick because, as you say, he's got the number 91 of Batty right behind him, and it could cost you big if you get it slightly wrong.
But as they head into Nelson now, quite a tight section of the track after that long straight of Bentley Straight. Now they're going to go down into Bombhole. They're very, very close together. It sounds like Craig Schill, number 16 or P16, has gone off again off camera. So maybe we'll go to a replay of that in a moment. Oh, look at that, getting a little bit brave on the inside, having a little look there. Not quite ready to make the move though. Here's Michael Rowe. He's chasing down a slightly dented and bashed Crawford ahead of him. A bit of damage being carried on that. I presume Crawford may have been involved in that early incident, possibly with that amount of damage on the car. It looks like he's still got a bit of pace in him though. As we go back over to Bathy, there's a bit of action at the front here, and Cox looking for a move, and he's going to be able to get it done. Is he possibly here? This is incredibly tight, and Bathy really trying to push Cox now into a manoeuvre on Brown, saying, look, if you're not going to do it, mate, I'm going to, so get out of the way. Car number 91 really wanted to try and establish himself on the podium. Obviously, as you said, Chris, doesn't matter, they've just got to get through. We don't want to see too many more incidents. Oh, we're going to go over to Craig Schill, another spin from Craig. Very similar to the previous incident.
Yeah, I think that's the same place. He's done the same thing. And these are very difficult cars to drive. There's a reason I stick to high downforce cars. It's because these things want to kill you at every single turn. And this is one of the most technical tracks we visit.
Long live the radical, eh?
Exactly.
Yes, so Craig Shaw, I think the only difference there was the camera angle that we were looking at it from, really. We should mention camera angles brought to you by trackcams22.com. That is the reason we're able to bring you this action from so many different viewpoints this evening. So thank you to those guys. Now continuing to follow this front battle with Brown at the head of the snake of Porsches, the trail behind him. It's looking like everyone's starting to get a bit impatient now, especially Mr. Cox, who's only 2/10 behind him. This has been absolutely nose to bumper for the entire race, and Cox trying a few different lines there, trying to run it out a little bit wider, but not really being able to make any kind of headway. And that, of course, means there's still going to be people behind him also trying to get their way around as we head into the pit straight up into Riches. Now, how close will he be able to get down into turn one? He's much tighter by the looks of it. And I would say that Bathy behind him also trying to have a little look around. And all behind there's Elia looking out on the inside. And Cox so close. These guys ever so close together at the front of the pack. They're really, really pushing each other to the limit as we get towards the halfway point in this first race. I can't believe it's only not even the halfway point yet. Only just, Chris.
I'm sure Gavin Halls is wishing this race would be over as soon as possible as well. He's having quite a nice time of it now. He's a good 7 seconds clear at the front of this pack, and that will give him a very nice position for the finale later on this evening.
Well, that's quite a comfortable gap, isn't it? Because he's about half a second to a second faster per lap compared to these guys. And again, you do wonder how much that does have, to do with the chain that you're watching on your screen at the moment. We're currently with Ilya. Oh, but here's Holloway going up the inside for a manoeuvre on Rowe, and it looks like he's managed to make it stick. Rowe having to go too wide there. Oh, a little bit of a wheel on the grass. That would have had to have been maybe a little bit of a lift to avoid a potential spin there. And Holloway, and here we go now over with Cullinan, all on his own at the moment. So quite a gap in front, quite a gap behind. A fairly lonely race here for Cullinan. The nearest person ahead is obviously Carbadine, and then behind him, it looks like we've got Coleman off track. I've just seen him drop down behind Wynn, which puts Colin Wynn now up to P7. Jared Coleman dropped down a little bit further. There he is, number 64 off the track, and I don't believe he hit any walls, so hopefully he'll be able to get back on. Coleman now P10, so right at the back of the qualifying bunch, should we say, at the front of the order, who are still fighting out ahead. The likes of here we go back to that front pack now. Car number 710 of Matt Cox still chasing behind Stuart Brown. We'll keep an eye on P10 because I think that could end up being quite an interesting portion of the race, obviously, with people that being the last position that gets you qualified into the feature race. So Coleman will now be on best behaviour, trying to keep all four wheels on the tarmac, don't you think, Chris?
I agree, and I think looking back down the pack, Holloway and Stevens have probably done the wrong thing here. They've been battling each other. They were just half a tenth behind Crawford at one point, and they're losing him. And with Coleman having had his mistake, they could have been fighting for 10th place and automatic qualification into the final round. But maybe Holloway just believes he's just got that pace advantage, doesn't want to be stuck behind Stevens, who, as we can see, heavily damaged car now.
We've got a few dented Porsches out there, haven't we? I guess these are the battle scars from the early phases of the race. Holloway currently 7/10 behind Crawford. Crawford at the moment. So this is pretty. They are catching the top 10. They could well make it up to that order. There's still another 7.5 minutes to go, Chris. So there's no reason why a little incident, a bit of a wheel off the onto the grass could cause any number of changes in the order. Colin Wynn is a little bit further off the front pack at the moment, but he's comfortably cruising in 7th position at the moment. As we go back to the front runners, P2 through to 6. Just over a second between these cars at the moment, and it's been that way for a good chunk of the race. As we see Exelby now trying to get it round the outside of Alia there, and pushing incredibly hard. He's joined the back of this group, and now he's putting them under a lot of pressure as he gets incredibly close to the back of Bathy there, but Alia managed to get it back up the inside, obviously putting the pressure on Exelby, who's going to have to sit back again for a minute and try again when another opportunity opens itself up. In the meantime, it looks like Gavin Hall's now growing that gap to 10 seconds ahead of Brown, who still is the head of this mid-pack here. As there goes the 6 of Alia up the inside, and that's an incredibly brave move on Bathy, who's trying to go neck to neck in a drag race into that corner, and Bathy almost went off there, keeping it on the track. Didn't get into a slide at all there, and that's going to allow Exelby to now try and get round the outside of him, and that's going to mean that Bathy's going to have to fight his way right back at the order, but he's still side by side with Exelby, keeping it ahead. Bathy on the inside, and Cox now able to try and chase behind Brown, while the other guys try and recover a little bit from that fight, but still only 3/10 to Alia behind. He's staying right behind him, and that's allowing Brown just to creep away a second ahead now, and that's going to mean that Cox is going to be out of that slipstream potentially, which he needs in order to try and keep to the back of Brown for a manoeuvre later on if he wants it. But obviously, as we've said already, these guys have already got automatic qualification, no reason to take any unnecessary risks.
Yeah, exactly. And Cox had a big moment of oversteer. I believe it was coming out of Oggies or Williams, and that's one of the worst places to have it, because you've got that big Bentley straight after, and that's why he's out of the slipstream of Brown, although he has caught back up a little bit, because at one point with that battle behind them, it looked like Brown and Cox were going to be able to get away for a bit and just have to focus on their own battle rather than a 5-car battle, which I think we can all agree, a bit more stressful.
5 minutes of this race left to go. We're going to go to Jared Coleman. That's P10. He's up 5 positions according to the overlays at the moment. So he's got Crawford behind him, just 1.7 seconds. Will Crawford be able to do anything in the last 5 minutes? We will see. Coleman, obviously, the last of the automatic qualifiers behind Cullinan ahead, who Cullinan is only 6/10 behind Carwadine at the moment, so perhaps we could go and have a little look at what they're up to. And oh, there's Coleman sliding it again there, and was there a car off ahead of him there as well, slowed down as well? Carwadine was possibly off as well, so I'm not sure what just happened, so we'll just see if we can get an angle of that.
I wonder if it's one of those occasions where they've sort of followed each other around, one's made the mistake and the driver behind us watched and made the same mistake.
Oh no, so yeah, exactly. He's done exactly that. He's had to get out of the throttle and then turn it around. So the damage there on the back of that car. So Coleman now 6/10 the gap to Crawford, who's now managing to creep up behind him. So let's see what happens with this fight between Byron and Mr. Coleman ahead of him. This is the battle for the last automatic qualification position. So Crawford will be absolutely gunning for it in this final phase of the race, where we have less than 3.5 minutes remaining now. So keep your eyes on the prize here. 2 laps or so, chat, and let's see what Brown's still in second, up ahead in the order. Cox 4/10 behind at the moment, so the battle at the front still very much on, all the way back to 6th, where we've got Bathy. Elia, who was further back, now managing to maintain that 4th position as we continue on here with Crawford, who's trying to keep the pressure on Coleman, who we've seen make a number of mistakes here at Stetson this evening in very familiar sections of the track. So I'll be oh no, sorry, it wasn't Coleman, was it? It was Schill that we've seen make some mistakes earlier on. I do apologise, it wasn't Coleman the whole time. Anyway, P10, going to keep following him here. Best lap of the session, 1:50.2. Last one out so far, 1:50.3. A bit of dust being kicked up there in the background of that shot provided to us by TrackCams 22. Don't forget to give us... Oh, he's gone, he's hit the inside there. Just as I was about to do a Twitch plug, he hits the inside curve and he's slowed down. He's lost it. He's out of the automatic qualification positions and really struggling to keep that thing on the tarmac this evening, Chris.
Yeah, and going around what they all seem to be using as the best overtaking spot on the track. My apologies. So I think he's just pushing that a little bit too hard, knowing it's one of the places that Crawford could have overtaken him. And Crawford, on the previous clean lap they both had, was 1/2 tenth quicker. So he knows he's got to be pushing, and that's unfortunately the result sometimes when you're pushing with a little bit of damage, it looks like. Sometimes the car just goes underneath you.
Absolutely, it can get away with you when you least expect it in these Porsche Cup Challenge cars, as we've seen a number of times this evening and in the first round. So just having a little read through your comments. Good battle for P2 here, comes from Jerome J.99. We've also got Buzz Race's great move. Some battle this, I presume, talking about the front runners that we've been watching. Now, I think we're just going to go and have a little look at Matt Cox now, getting past Brown. It looks like he's managed to do it because Brown has just turned it round, and that has allowed Cox to get around him into P2. Brown, who is at the head of that chain of cars, now right at the back of it. He's rejoined the course, but I don't think he's going to be in contention now for a podium spot. He's back in 6th position, Chris. That is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but it shows why it was worth them all working together and playing it safe in the first 18 minutes of this race, because he span and lost 6 seconds, but he doesn't have to worry about being out of the top 10 because he's still got a good 15 seconds to be within that. So he could probably have another spin and still get through. Not to jinx him, I hope.
Well, it didn't look like there was any contact there. That was all on his own by the looks of it. And a place where we've seen very similar incidents with the Porsche Cup, where we've seen it getting a little bit sideways into the right-hander, and then guys having to try and get out of the throttle and recover it, and that has caused at least 3 or 4 incidents that we have seen this evening. Only 30 seconds left to go of Heat 1, and we'll be going into the final lap in a moment, so there'll be the white flag for these guys. Gavin Hall still way out in front, car number 38 there, absolutely storming lead. We'll ride a lap with Gavin Halls now, and you'll be able to see the driving finesse at the front of the order. Looks like Oliver Carwadine headed down to P10 now. He was P8 and he's just dropped right down
final
the
lap.
order.
That was the final lap. Halls has just finished the line just after the 20 minutes are up, so this is the final lap.
So final lap now, that's the white flag moment, and there's Carwadine, who's just managed to go off track there, unfortunately. I believe that's at Hamilton at the moment, but he's just rejoined the order in P10, luckily for him, so he will still have that automatic qualification. Oh, is that Gavin Halls off the track? Oh no, that's the end of the race. I thought it was off the track for a moment. I hadn't seen the overlay with the checkered flag. That was a worry for a moment there. And there's Ilya, Johnny Ilya in 3rd position. Great racing from all of these drivers this evening. Some fantastic stuff. Win in 7th there. Chris, do you want to run us through the current finishing order?
Yeah, so our top 10 that are qualifying straight through to the final. We've got Gavin Halls with his nice, comfortable victory, followed by Matt Cox, Johnny Elia, Rob Exelby, Dan Bathy taking it in 5th. We've got Stuart Brown in 6th, who's unlucky to not finish on the podium after his race. Colin winning 7th, and then we've got Ralph Cullinan in 8th, Byron Crawford in 9, and Oliver Carwadine, who went up 6 positions to take P10 and the last spot in the final round. It looks like we're just getting ready for the second heat now. There's the results of the first heat. As we say, Gavin Hall's in first. Jared Coleman will be cursing the fact he couldn't finish 3 seconds sooner so that we get an extra lap and he could have a real crack at Carwadine there. Looks like we've got heat 2 gridding up. So James Armstrong's going to be on pole with Chris Wally alongside him. Another Chris in Chris Bridle is in third with Michael Hornby also on the second row. We've got 21 drivers in this split, same as the first one, same as before. The top 10 are all going to go through. And of course, the remaining drivers will go through to the consolation heat to round out the third heat before the final. So we just wait for everyone to grid. This time it's James Armstrong using the psyching out tactics of taking ages to grid.
He certainly is. It looks like he's there now, though. So car 47 at the front of the grid and getting ready to go as we have the lights now coming on for you. Now, here we go. All of these greens going out and away we go. It's the second heat race of the Porsche Cup Challenge with Armstrong getting a great start, but Wally also getting a great start. We've got Hornby behind looking to be part of the action, and Bridle and Hornby. Oh, we've got a few cars off already. It looks like we've got Wally, Hughes, possibly Kershaw as well, dropping down the order. Bridle now up the front having a fight here with Armstrong. We've also got Vance Briggs dropping down the order, and Kershaw and Butterworth a few places changing across the field at the moment. Bridle, great start, up a few places to take the lead away from James Armstrong, I believe there. So that is absolutely fantastic work at the front of the order. And then we've got Dan Mould in third, followed by Michael Hornby, who was previously in third. A little bit of contact nearly, I think, there between some of the racers on the track. This is absolutely fantastic stuff, Chris. We've got Porsches wall-to-wall across this circuit at the moment, as we see Johnson just dropping down the order. Is that Johnson I've just seen going off there? That is unfortunate. Car number 34 of Johnson. Cy Anthony, we are currently having a little look at now. Cy in 6th position. He's under threat from Rob Armstrong behind, but he's got Robinson ahead of him, who's going to be chasing after. Only very, very fine margins between all of these guys at the moment. Bridle having a comfortable kind of charge up ahead with Armstrong, only a couple of tenths behind him though, so he's going to be keeping the pressure on all the way into this second heat race that we're watching now. Oh, lots of curb there for James Armstrong, really throwing that Porsche Cup car around. We're going to go to a replay here with Vance Briggs just turning it around with a lot of damage on the front of some of these cars down the order. There's Vance, number 33, we're just watching. He's just clipped a bit of the grass and that sent him spinning around. We're back on with James Armstrong.
Sorry, I was going to give a shout out to Steve Olden, who'd made up 9 places from the start to go to 10th, but unfortunately it looks like he's lost it as well and he's back down to 17th. So it just shows you it's a 20-minute race. Just because you do 1 minute well doesn't mean you're going to qualify well.
Yeah, 1 minute versus a whole another 19 minutes or something, isn't it? Your race pace has got to be consistent, and you're going to be able to keep these Porsche cars under control for the duration, which is what we're seeing currently from the rest of the order. Lots of close racing here, all up and down the field. We've got Bridle, Armstrong, Mould, Hornby, Robinson, Anthony, Armstrong, Roberts, Rendell, Wally, and that's your top 10 at the moment. So Wally, who we had seen quite a bit further up the order, dropped down early on in the first lap. We saw him drop a few places, but he has managed to stay in the top 10 for automatic qualification. There's the replay of Steve Olden going off the track. Fortunately managing to, I was going to say fortunately managed to get it back on safely, but it looks like he's managed to broadside it right across the tarmac, which is going to be an obstruction for obviously the other people coming at him. So he's down in 19th at the moment. Oh, he's out by the looks of it, unfortunately, Chris, so didn't stay in at all.
Looks like he went back to the pit lane, although he might have just gone for some repairs, perhaps, because you never know. If enough people can spin out or crash out, you could still qualify from that position.
Absolutely, yeah. Everything to play for here. It's very much like a radical race. You can drop people off. We keep mentioning that. Yeah, it's a bit, just, because we're both racing that recently, haven't we, on the Thursday nights? But
Yeah, didn't someone finish second in that race?
oh, they might have, but I wouldn't know who that was at all, Chris. You know, I think it was the winner of the Monday night practice. Anyway, don't worry about him. But Riddle at the front of the order, currently the prospective winner of this race, followed by Armstrong. We've got a lot of cars that are really riding over the curbs and the grass. They're kicking up dust and pushing the limits of the track that they've paid for from iRacing. We're into the 149s across the top four at the moment. Some very fast laps from all of our front runners. James 2/10 away from Riddle follow, and then there's also only 2/10 between Armstrong and Mole as well, so that's cars 47 and 5 in second and third. Let's go over to them now. It's looking a little bit like the last race, isn't it, Chris, where we've got a couple of chains of cars kind of pulling each other along. The only difference being this time that we haven't got P1 absolutely darting out into the distance. Oh, I think Masters has just crashed, possibly. I've just seen an incident ping for Stephen Masters. Perhaps we'll go over to a replay of that now. Let's see what happened to Stephen Masters, car number 10. Oh, he's got a bit squiffy, tried to correct it, and then he just ended up going in a straight line, I think, Chris.
Yep, it's so easy to do that, and you know you've no real choice. You have to correct that, but you run out of track to correct it from. Had a comment in the Twitch chat from Dan80, which I believe is Dan Mould, saying, FYI, I don't really know how to start these cars. Well, he made 3 places on the first lap, so maybe ignorance is bliss.
Or is that like a bull shark kind of thing, like, you know, lose the first game and then win your money back on the next few kind of thing? Who knows?
But he needs to save that for the final round if that's the case.
All the tactics happening here this evening. Armstrong maintaining that 2/10 gap at the moment. We're on with Martin Rendell here, up 3 places, and he's in P10. He's in the hot seat, that last spot for automatic qualification into the final. A very hotly contested spot, as we saw obviously in the last race, with a couple of people changing around. Here's Rob Armstrong. Rob in the top 10 with Armstrong Jr., who obviously... Oh, look, and James is just dropping down the order. James has just dropped down to 4th, 5th, 6th. I think we might have to go to see what happened to James. He's tried to make a pass here on the inside. Has he got too deep? He's gotten far too deep, hasn't he? Bit of contact, and then he's going to need that consolation race possibly. And look, that's sent both of them off the track there. And James, a little bit of damage there. It looks like P10. Oh, then he's been hit again. Oh, that's both the Armstrongs taken off the track at the same time there. I will have to see that again in a minute, Chris. I'm not sure who was responsible for that one in a minute.
Oh, it looks like number 42 there, which was Martin Rendell. When James came back on the track, he just tried to move out of the way, not entirely sure if he'd make it. And he's a complete passenger there, and he's killed both the Armstrongs. Braked a bit too late as well. Not much he can do once he's on the grass there. That's very unfortunate. But the sort of the trigger for that was probably, I would say, an overly aggressive overtake from James Armstrong, because it's, you know, obviously you want the glory of winning the race. That is understandable. We're all racing drivers, but is it really worth doing that 7 minutes into a heat race when you want to get a good position for the finale?
Well, that's James Armstrong now down in 14th position. Rob now in that 10th spot. So very much now in a very damaged car. We're going to be fighting for his life with the likes of Franklin behind him, who will be now trying to catch up and get himself into that automatic qualification spot. So that puts Dan Mould at the front of the order now. Dan, who, as you were saying earlier, oh, there's another car off the track there ahead. I don't know who that was that we just saw. That was Rob. Rob's dropping down the order, so that damaged car has now led him to be in a position where he is going to be dropping out of that top 10. That's unfortunate for Rob. Now we're going to go over to Chris Roberts. We've got a move here coming up the inside from Wally, and it looks like he's made it stick. Wally, who was in 10th, really starting to claw his way back up the order after an incident earlier on, but Roberts is going to Roberts is going to stick it up the inside and say, no, thank you, I'm going to fight you for that position, as they go too wide now into this next section of the track, but they've got more cars ahead of them. Could there be traffic that causes this little fight to slow down, or is there going to be more changing of positions with these guys up ahead? Cy Anthony also fighting Bridle ahead of him, only 3/10 in that fight, so we could quite possibly have another situation where we have everyone from P1 all the way back to P7 possibly in contention for some kind of fight here. Actually, there is a bit of a gap by the looks of between the front here, the P3 and P2 Hornby. There's 3 seconds in there, so not quite the same as the last race, Chris.
No, we have got those mini gaps as well. So 3rd through to 7th are close, and then there's a 6.5-second gap back to Rendell, who'll be begging Crawford to not fight him too much because they're only 4 seconds ahead of Johnson in 10th, and then another 2.5 seconds back to Franklin. So they're not fully clear yet, definitely through. Again, that's the tactics of these heat races at play. Not all the drivers are going to be on the same page with that because, racers at heart will want to overtake the car in front of them.
That Mould currently has a half-a-second gap to Hornby behind him. Looks like he's keeping that quite comfortable at the moment. Here's Vance Briggs looking for a move on Johnson, and it looks like he's managed to get it done comfortably. That's car 33 getting around car 41 there. As we go over to Martin Robinson, who is currently in P5. He's obviously taken advantage of the fact that a few people have dropped out of the order ahead of him, and that has got him up the order. There's Rob Armstrong in the pits now by the looks of it, so that might be Rob out of this race. And oh, is that Robinson off? That's Wally that's gone off there. Car number 2 down to P7. I wonder if that's going to put him. Oh yeah, that's potentially going to put him down the order now. He's in 9th, so he's at risk of being one of those bottom 2 that could drop up. Masters and Franklin, I believe, have now had an incident, so that takes the pressure off of those P9, P10 guys at the back of the order who are fighting for automatic qualification. Look at that, there's a little bit of a dink there, is there? Ooh! Spun
Very
round.
similar to the incident the other lap.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, once you get on that grass, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's just like an ice rink. You are a passenger, so that's a shame. So if you look now at the timing screen, there's now between Johnson in P10 and Armstrong in, that's James Armstrong in P11, there's 4-second gap. So that could mean that the likes of Johnson might be, and Wally in contention for that automatic qualification if a damaged Armstrong can't close that gap up into the final section of the race. We've seen so many incidents. But there's only 10 minutes of this race to go, so 4 seconds in 10 minutes, Chris? I think that's possible, don't you?
Possible. And if you can make the guy push, they can make a mistake, and it's far less than 4 seconds you have to worry about.
Looks like that gap growing a little bit, actually getting close to the 5-second mark there almost for a moment. Just looking at the front of the field, cars 5 and 56 of Norton Hornby still separated by only about half a second, and then you've got another 3 seconds behind them to the rest of the front pack. Now we're going to go over with Cy Anthony here, 5 places and waiting 4th is live against Robinson, who's only 4/10 behind him. So that's cars number 27 and car number 9 behind that you're watching, fighting for position there. Now we should mention, it looks like Crawford has just dropped down the order possibly. I'll go over to a quick replay here. We're just going to have a little look. Is it the hairpin again that's going to have done him over? It is.
He's already on the limit coming through into turn 1, so it's again that's someone pushing because they know they're in a danger zone, and I think that'll give James Armstrong an easier target.
Well, that is a shame. So we look at the time left on the screen now. 8 minutes of this heat remain, Chris, and I think we've seen absolutely everything so far. We've seen spins, we've seen incidents. We've got P15 now going off at the hairpin as well, I believe. Maybe we'll get a replay of that one. Lots of smoke, dust being kicked up there by these Porsche cars. Here we go. Here is a replay of Hawkins. There you go, number 17 there, car that you can see, and again, just turned it round. They're on the limit, aren't they, as you say, Chris? They just, every time they get there, and then it's a journey across the grass that's even more perilous in these things because it's just so slippy. You can end up turning it round before you even got it back to the track.
Yeah, and you wonder if track conditions must have changed between the two heats somewhat because they weren't having quite so much trouble around that hairpin 20 minutes ago. Obviously, we've had 30 odd cars drive around it repeatedly, and it's a bit later in the morning in Snetterton. We started at 10 o'clock here, so perhaps that extra heat on the track is just making it that little bit harder to navigate the hairpin at the pace they would have practiced it on.
James Armstrong only 3.5 seconds behind Crawford for the P10 position now, so that's Kane Crawford being chased. Masters, I believe, just got past Franklin, so still a lot of action and a lot of racing and plenty of overtakes to be had throughout the field. Here's Masters on a replay. This is how he just got past Crawford there, so it's kind of a 10 going past number 11. Brilliant work there from Mr. Masters. So that was Franklin who got past.
I think
Crawford.
Rendell's gone off track because James Armstrong's back up into 10th now.
James Armstrong, after all of that drama, manages to claw his way back up. Look at this, Rendell. Lots of pressure from behind, and yeah, he's locked it up. Again, that hairpin just proving to be a point where drivers failing repeatedly to keep that Porsche in a straight line. Here's Dan Mould now with 5 minutes to go. He's under a lot of pressure from Hornby. That's probably the closest we've seen these guys racing throughout the entire session through this second heat. Now, we haven't really paid them too much attention because of the amount of action going on further down the field, but as we see now, the pressure really on from Hornby and Mould having to push it to the limit to try and keep ahead. I wonder how long it's going to be before Mould makes a mistake, steps a tyre out, on the grass, and it tumbling down. Now, again, if he's thinking of the long game, he'll think, well, no, I need to just stay, in the race, so I at least get through to the final as they head into turn 1 now. Still with Dan Mould ahead. That slipstream not counting for much for Mr. Hornby at the moment, but we'll have a little look back down the order. We're going to go over to Roberts now. Chris Roberts here, up 4 places at the moment. He's safe in P6. All he needs to do is get it round the next 5 minutes of racing, and he'll be through to the next round. We've got Wally behind him, and Johnson and Crawford and Armstrong rounding out your top 10, with Rendell 2.5 seconds behind at the moment. Here is Hawkins. We've got another spinner there. That's car number 41. That's Johnson that spun it round and gone off onto the grass. So that's a shame for Johnson. Wasn't in contention for that automatic qualification, but nonetheless, shame to see him off the track at this late stages of the race. Here's Rendell again, car number 42, picking up a lot of curb and then ending up on the grass, Chris.
Yeah, it just shows you just how much they're pushing. Although, if I were Rendell, if it's James Armstrong in front of you, I don't think you need to worry about pushing. You just have to hope that someone in front of them gets killed. Just run your race safely and see if you can pick up a piece. Because at least if you're in 11th, I believe that will give you a nice starting position for the consolation heat.
As we just go on replay mode there with Chris Roberts, just keeping an eye on what they were up to as we were watching some of the portions of the race. Here's Dan Mould, still under pressure from Hornby. Great racing at the front here. It's a shame we haven't seen more of this. Look at how close they are at the moment, these two at the front. They've got a 3-second gap to Brittle behind. Now, 3 seconds, not very much, Chris, so you need obviously a little bit of a slowdown here. Any kind of trouble that they get into could cost them, obviously, a lot more time than 3 seconds, which would lead to obviously Brittle taking that top spot. Now, if there's any sense between these two guys, they'll just keep it nice and close, keep trying to grow that gap. And oh no, there goes Dan Mould onto the grass. Big drift for Dan Mould. He's kept it, and now that gap, 1.9 seconds to Hornby ahead of him and 1.2 to Brittle behind. So now Dan Mould now has to get back in that headspace and try and get himself refocused for the remainder of this race. That's a shame after such a great set of leading laps that he's had throughout this race so far, Chris.
Yeah, it'll be very frustrating for him. He's led about 8 of these 9 laps, and with probably 2 left to go, it'll be Hornby that at this rate looks like will take the flag. But it just goes to show you the difference in these kind of heat races. We had James Armstrong earlier really aggressively going for an overtake, and he's down in 10th. Michael Hornby never went for the overtake, showed his nose a few times just to remind Dan he was there. That pressure's paid off, and he might be winning this heat now.
It looks that way, doesn't it? Hornby was, really close up behind Mould for a big chunk of the last few laps. Only 2 tenths to 3 tenths really separating them for the most part of it. Here we are now with Michael Hornby on board. Great little camera angles. We're able to bring you here, obviously, from track cams 22. Dan Mold 1.8 behind now, and Bridle 1.1 behind him. So Bridle actually now getting under a second to Dan Mold. So I wonder if Dan Mold's kind of psyche, his focus has just been kind of thrown out by that incident now, and that's going to be playing some games with his head. He just tries to keep it together for the final 2 minutes of this race. There's Hornby nice and tidy into the final corner as he now comes into the pit straight. We'll ride on board with Hornby for a bit of this lap now, shall we? Let's see what his form is like into turn one. So here we go into Riches. That looks nice and tidy. He's kept it a little bit of feathering on the throttle there by the sound of it, Chris, just to get him round the corner, but he's right on the white line as we head up to Montreal for that nice tight hairpin. Could be a little bit closer maybe to the inside curve there as he heads down towards Palmer. This is a kind of a bit of a tighter left-hander than you think. It's long and round, but eventually you can get down on the power as you head up to Agostini out there. Now,
Yeah, he's looking very calm. He's having to make those small corrections, but nothing too major. He doesn't have to push too hard. Dan Mold is 2 seconds back on him and will understandably be feeling a bit nervous.
Okay, we're going to come away from Hornby, I think, in a moment, because it looks like Armstrong has just gone off track, and he was our P10 runner, so he was had just managed to make his way. Yeah, look at him, he's gone off in the same place as Dan Mold, I believe there. I think that was at turn one. So, and there's Rendell behind, but Rendell, I don't think that Rendell was able to take advantage of that because he's had a spin previously, and that's a shame because he would have loved to have been able to capitalise on that and get himself that automatic qualification. But James gets away with it this time. One of his 9 lives used up. We're now back with Hornby as we just follow around. I think that was Bomb Hole. We've just gone around there now into Coram before we then end up into the final corner, the final left-hander in a moment of Murray. So nice and tight, very technical section. And watch out for those curbs, which can really chuck the car around, Chris. Here we go into the last lap now. Oh no, actually this is the finish. That is the finish for Hornby. So a fantastic victory from Hornby there. And he's followed by Mould, Bridle, Anthony and Robinson for the top 5. And James Armstrong just manages to keep himself in contention again.
Yeah, and also Mark Johnson, I believe, went off track on that last lap, but just lost out on one position. But luckily for him, he was, again, far enough ahead of Martin that he didn't have to worry about dropping out of that all-important top 10.
Now, we have had a great little heat there from all of our racers. Fantastic racing. We've seen people off track, on track, you know, people who we thought were going to be out of contention make their way back up into the top 10. It really just goes to show that this heat racing can be right down to the wire and you cannot predict what is going to happen next. So we'll be going into the next race. That'll be the consolidation race that'll be coming up in a moment. Once we've got the rest of the pack, we've just got to get them over the line. And then we'll go over the top 10 for you now. So we've got Michael Hornby in first, then followed by Dan Mould, and then Bridle behind him. Anthony comes in fourth, and then we've got Robinson in fifth, followed by Roberts in sixth, Wally, Johnson, Crawford, and Armstrong. Plenty of action up and down the order. Any standout moments in there for you, Chris, at all? Any particular overtakes that really took your eye?
Oh, I think the main thing I've taken away from this is the start on this track is absolutely lethal. We've had big incidents in both races. I suspect the consolation we'll see even more because they'll be quite desperate, I think, to get into that top 10. We have seen some very good overtakes. The best part does seem to be that Montreal hairpin at turn 2. If you can get a good exit on Riches, and I think that's what James Armstrong was attempting with that maximum curb usage, just trying to get that launch through there, just as maybe practice for the next 2 races, because you'd expect James Armstrong to be near the top, but we've got a few drivers that will be in his consolation to look out for that I imagine will really want to push. Stephen Kershaw starting right at the back, qualified 5th for his heat, so I think he's someone to look out for. Chris Hitchin in 19th is another one who's got a lot of pace and is probably out of position. But there we go, we can see the Heat 2 results as we're just waiting for the consolation drivers to grid up.
We are indeed, yeah, just waiting for the drivers to get themselves out there on the field, ready to get started. I think we're waiting for Rob Armstrong and Steve Hughes now just to grid up. And once we've got those guys on the track, we'll be able to get the lights out and we'll be underway. So 22 cars on the track here now. Stephen Kershaw at the back and Jared Coleman at the front. Martin Rendell in P2, followed by Holloway in P3, Stephen Masters in P4, and Danger Stevens in P5. So here we go. The lights are going out now for the consolidation race, the third race this evening in the Porsche Cup, and they are away. Jared Coleman with a great start, managed to get himself way ahead, and he's got a bit of company behind him in the form of Martin Renner, but Adam Holloway fancies to go up the inside. Stephen Masters also trying to keep himself in contention there within the top 5. And there's a few off-track ball looks in the background. Looks like Armstrong possibly dropped down the order, and Alden as well, I think we've also lost there at the back. Jared Coleman, though, staying at the front of the pack, and he's growing a bit of a gap already by the looks of it, or at least he's trying to. Again, we have a chain of cars in the front 4, and then a bit of a gap behind them, and then a long sea of Porsche Cup cars there in the background, all bustling and tussling for position. Look at this fantastic racing from everybody, and only a couple of minor incidents, I believe, that we might have just had off the first corner. So great stuff so far. We're with Michael Rowe, and he's up 3 spots to P10 at the moment, so he's put himself up into the fight here, Michael Rowe, and really excited to see him pushing these guys hard around him. Craig Schill ahead of him, who we have seen have a couple of incidents in the previous races, and he's picking up a bit of grass there. Oh, we've got 1, 2, 3 cars off there, and those are all of our leaders, I believe. That is the top 3 that are dropping down the order. We'll get back to that in a minute. Sean will bring us a fantastic replay angle as we stay on with Craig Schill here. He's under threat from Rowe, and look at this now from Craig Schill defending hard, and there's a long line of cars in front of him also holding him up. Here we're just going to go back to what happened in the incident behind us. We just rewind that now for you so we can see how they got underway. Maybe it says Martin Rendell off the track. That was a shame there. Here we go. Should have it now for you. There's Rendell following along behind at the front there, and oh no, that's a shame. So that's just people getting caught up in natural racing incidents there, just physics doing its thing, and unfortunately cars were in the way there, Chris.
Yeah, there's not much you can do about that. I think he could have held his brakes on the outside there, but it felt like, I think he probably thought he'd caught that, and obviously you're in the lead, you want to try and keep the lead. It's just very unfortunate coming together. I would say 2 drivers to shout out so far. They've both gained 11 places. They're fighting for 10th and 11th at the moment. We've got Herbert O'Shaughnessy and Stephen Kershaw, so they're doing very well so far.
That is, yeah, great stuff from both of those guys. It's good to see them absolutely climbing up the order. So the grid accident, I believe, that may have happened that's allowed a few of these guys to get up the order. It looks like Holloway just got round Hawkins for P15. Oh no, Holloway and Hawkins really swapping places quite a lot down the bottom of the order now. A bit further down the order, should I say. Now we're going to go over to Craig Schill here. So Craig Schill in P7, fighting for his life in that top 10, trying to make sure that he maintains position. He's still ahead of Rowe, who's been fighting with for a little while, but to no avail by the looks of it. And Rowe also under threat from Slater here, car number 53, incredibly close behind, looking to go side by side. And we're now back with them here. Your screens, we go, oh no, with car number 10 there of Herbert. Up 11 places, you said already, Chris. That battle ahead of them, though, really getting quite close between the likes of Slater, Rowe and Schill. In fact, the gap between P6 and P12, probably less than a second at the minute, Chris.
Yeah, I'd say if you're Anthony Franklin at the front of this train, you'll be absolutely bricking it right now, because that is a lot of drivers behind you. You make one mistake and you're out of that top 10 immediately.
Absolutely right, and I think Kershaw there critically only 1/10 behind Herbert at the minute. So there's no matter where you are in that order at the moment, there's definitely a risk to your future in the final of this round 2 of the challenge. Now, all of these camera angles of the action, you get to see tonight brought to you by Track Cams 22, and obviously our resident director behind the scenes, Sean Crandall Swash, controlling those and bringing you all of the action as we carry on riding with this midfield battle, as you said, being led by Franklin, and then you've got Wood behind him, Schill, Rowe, Slater, Herbert and Kershaw. Masters now 5 seconds out in front after taking advantage of all of that commotion that happened with the front runners, Chris. Stephen Masters, who I don't think we'd seen doing too well in the previous rounds in his consolidation race. He's managed to put himself at the top, and there's
Had
some
a punt
contact there. It looks like Herbert's just had a bit of a punt.
That's fair. I think he's just tried to brake a little bit too late, and he's been caught out, and it's very difficult in these cars to make a correction once you've committed to that. So, I mean, I guess in some way it's lucky that the guy that's gone into the back of someone is the one that's come out the worst from it. So let's see how number 53 coped with that.
Yeah, he did. He just couldn't get it stopped in time, could he? And hit the back there, I think, of... was that Slater, I think he hit?
Yeah, that was.
Hopefully that hasn't done too much damage to the back of Slater's car, but Slater now in P10. He's in the he's in the qualification zone. He has dropped a place, but look at him. He's still pretty strong there by the looks of it, ahead of Alexander. So let's keep an eye on him. We're only 5 minutes into this consolidation race. A lot of time left to go for these guys, and a lot more incidents possibly to happen. There are fights behind with Hughes, Hitchin and Rendell only separated by a few tenths. It looks like Rendell might have gone off as well off screen. We'll try and catch that again in a minute. We should also just point out that Rendell now very close. It looks like he's just got around Hitchin. So let's go and see if we can maybe see that in a moment. Up the top of the order. Oh, there's a few cars off on the grass there we just saw. Here is Steve Hughes, car number 20, we're just going to watch, and there is a bit of an off track there, yeah, just a couple of them going onto the grass wide there, picking up a bit of dirt on the rubber. Oh, there's lots of damage there on Chris Hitchens' car, isn't there? And yeah, that's why he's managed to get out wide, isn't it, on that replay. He's just drifting really far out there and not in control of that Porsche car. That's a shame for Chris Hitchin, who now down the order, unfortunately, in 14th. Here's Vance Briggs looking for a fight here, side by side, bit of paint bashing. Oh no, he's gone off. That was a replay of Vance Briggs just losing it onto the grass and then managed to bring it back in. So Slater still in P10 at the moment. He's still in the automatic qualification zone. It looks like he's got a decent gap behind him to Alexander at 3.8. Absolutely dropped him now. I think there was you've now got the fight for 11th between Hughes, Alexander and Rendell. Looks like Hughes has just managed to take that position by the looks of it. Now Rendell trying to put up the fight. He's deadly close behind, trying to claw his way back up, and there goes Steve Hughes off the track, and Alexander now able to stay ahead, and look at Steve Hughes still mowing the grass there, just trying to get it back on the track safely, and he's been passed by Hitchin, who is taking obviously a lot of damage. I wonder if Hitchin will be able to maintain that position with the amount of damage he's got on the car. And here is Schill on the main straight now, going for a move on Kershaw. Not quite brave enough though. He's going to tuck it in behind by the looks of it. Not going to go for a move under braking into the first corner. Wow, Chris, so much going on in the mid-pack at the moment. It's incredible that we can keep an eye on all of this.
Yeah, we've got a lot of action to unpack here, and it's different to the other two heats because the fastest laps being traded throughout the pack. Earlier we had Rob Armstrong, who's in 16th, had fastest lap, and now at the moment it's held by Tom Slater, but I think Holloway and one of Kershaw or Schill had also got it within that lap. The other one I want to point out, Steve Hughes had qualified in 10th but opted to pit start and had got back up into the top 10 nearly before that off track, so he'll be feeling very frustrated right now, having, that strategy had paid off for him up until that point. But he's still got 11.5 minutes to see if he can make that work and get into the final round.
Yeah, plenty of time for Masters to close that gap up in ore. Look at that, Franklin under a lot of pressure here from Woods. This is number 11 their car, you can see. So Woods, 87 car of Woods there, really pushing hard against Franklin. Nothing in it between these guys at the minute, and I reckon that Woods is going to get the move done. Has he managed to do it? It looks like he's just managed to get round.
Circuit's so technical, you can never quite tell when the move is finished because you've got another 2 or 3 corners straight up ahead.
There is so much going on the track. Slater, who was holding P10 for us, looks like he's now slipped down the order and had a little bit of an incident there. Yeah, he's caught some grass there and then managed to keep it just
caught that very well.
Oh yeah, very masterfully captured there. Now
he had the fastest lap.
he's got a bit of a gap behind him, hasn't he, I think, Chris? So that might have just paid him dividends and managed to keep him in that P10, has it? It has, yeah. Look, he's managed to hold on to it. Fantastic work there. So,
Good 4-second gap still.
ooh, bit of a kick up there. Look, we've got kind of a 25 going right to the inside there, putting a bit of pressure on. And it looks like Vance Briggs now. Oh, we've got contact. Oh, we've got a car off. There's car 73. We've got Sanford dropping down the order, and we've also got Woods off as well. So Woods, Sanford, Slater now up into 8th from P10. That's going to put these guys down into the danger zone now and potentially out of this race. Here goes Sanford in the car number 73. He's just been dinked there. Oh, that's a shame. Lots of contact there into the hairpin. P10 now, Denny Wood, I believe, just looking at the order. So that means that Slater, who had been the one at risk, now up into P8. So will the likes of Hitchin and Alexander be able to bring themselves up? Kip Stevens currently in P1 at the moment. We need to just go over to Kip. Looks like Masters now 6/10 behind. Let's have a little look at Kip, and he's just managed to go. Took a bit of grass there by the looks of it, and Kip Stevens just capitalised on that accident and gets round car number 10. Fantastic work from Kip Stevens.
There's been so many drivers struggling at the Montreal hairpin here. I mean, it's not only the best overtaking opportunity, it's also the place where you've got to watch out in case the people in front of you have killed each other.
Absolutely, and the thing that we've noticed here is that some of the overtakes here really are just avoiding people that have come to dead stops when they've gone broadside at the hairpin, haven't they? When they've lost the control and locked the wheels up. Now we're currently looking at Kershaw. So Kershaw in the fight for potentially a podium position here, obviously in this consolidation race. All he needs to do is finish and get his qualification. But 1/10 behind Franklin, a podium would be nice. I'm sure the glory is there for the taking. Tom Slater in 8th position now, putting a lot of pressure on Craig Schill. Craig Schill, who we've seen fighting a lot, and there's Holloway also racing hard against Vance Briggs. We've got a great front midfield kind of battle at the moment with only a few tenths of a second covering a lot of the guys in their various little fights, and it's really going to go all the way to the end, isn't it? Oh look, a bit of tyre smoke there. That's Schill that's managed to go off the track, and that's going to allow Slater, I think Slater as well might have gone off. Here's Greg, this is just a replay there of Greg Butterworth. Here's Tom Slater behind Craig Schill. Let's see what happens here. It looks to me like, oh, Schill's the one that loses it, and then trying to avoid it, Slater just stops that. That is brilliant work from Slater. Managed to avoid Schill, who went off track there. Plenty of smoke there. So P10 is now Nick Alexander, and Slater back down into 9th, where he had been riding obviously up in 8th. And oh, is that Slater again there? I can see it is Slater. Slater back down in P10 now, so back where he was a few moments ago. And Alexander now up into the into 9th position. Slater going to have a little look down the inside though. And looks like Schill might have gone off again. Here's Craig Schill, and yeah, yes, that is unfortunately, oh, that's quite a big hit that time, Chris.
Yeah, it's often the case, one accident follows another because you've lit your tyres up, the temperature's going to be different, and your heart's going to be in your mouth. So, and this is not the kind of race where you can afford to just drive it gently for half a lap to a lap to get back used to how it was. So that's very unfortunate for Craig, but that's often what happens once you've had that one incident. And Tom Slater as well, I think sort of avoidance of the year award for him this race. He's been involved in a lot of stuff and managed to keep it in the top 10 somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, look, we've got another one there, just struggling. Some lights flashing there on the pit straight, and then we're now with Herbert in P12. He's up 9 places. He was down to 21st at one point, obviously after an incident that we had seen earlier, and he's getting incredibly close there to the back. And I hear some tyre squealing there. We've got, yeah, there's another one. There's Rob Armstrong at the back there that's managed to spin it round. That's a shame for Rob. That right-hander appearing to be an absolute menace for our drivers tonight. Masters at the front of the order is 7/10 behind Kip Stevens, and then the other closest fight we've got at the moment is Franklin and Briggs. Now, Herbert O'Shanahay here and in P12 and Sanford ahead are actually closing in, and Stevens behind, Hughes behind are actually closing in on the likes of Sanford and some of the other guys ahead of them. So we'll see what happens by the end of the race. Only 6 minutes or 5.5 minutes, I believe now, until we are done here with the consolidation race. And Sean, it looks like he's managed to get a pass there, Herbert, into P11. So great driving there from him. And he'll be pushing up now, trying to make his way up to Nick Alexander for that qualification place.
Yeah, these two need to work together. There's no point fighting out amongst themselves because it's only for P11 right now and they won't be going through to the next round. If you can just sort of, I think O'Shaughnessy seems to have the most pace. If I was Rob Sanford, I'd just stick behind him, stay with him and just try and pick up any scraps that come there because we've seen already lots of incidents in this race and people will go off.
Yeah, a bit of damage there on the front of the car by the looks of it as well, Chris. So obviously it will be suffering a little bit. Kip Stevens now under a lot of pressure from Stephen Masters. Look at this at the front. The gap has really gone down. And I think Rob Sanford and Hughes have possibly gone off as well now at the back of the order. Let's have a little look at the replay of that, Chris. It's Steve Hughes. Oh, Sanford is the one that I think might have lost it ahead of him, just turning that Porsche around, and then Hughes has gone off onto the green stuff and slid it into the barrier.
Not much he could have done about that because if he goes into Sanford, then his race is done anyway. But I think that leaves Herbert as the one guy that can really challenge the top 10 still, because there seems to be big gaps before him now.
Kip Stevens still leading the order at the moment with Masters behind him by only half a second. Looking like they'll be in for quite a fight all the way to the end for the last 4 minutes of this. Now, really don't need to push too hard, do they, Chris? And I think now the pack is starting to even itself out a little bit and spread itself out. The top 10 now all starting to get outside of 1 second gaps, meaning that they're a little bit further apart than they have been for the majority of this consolidation. Now, Holloway is still putting a bit of pressure on Kershaw, however, not quite enough by the looks of it to make too much of a dent in the gap. Now, behind them, we've got Denny Wood in 8th position, chasing hard behind Rendell. Denny Wood, not one that we had seen in the top 10 until the later stage of this race. Slater now managed to maintain 9th after a couple of little incidents from Slater, but still managed to take advantage of obviously some of the other people that have dropped down from the top.
I don't believe we've mentioned this yet, but Stephen Kershaw, who's currently in 3rd and just holding off Holloway, he started 22nd in this consolation race, so well done to Kershaw.
Fantastic result from Kershaw. There's a lot of positions to be made up throughout the race. Now, just looking at some of the best times from the top 10. Looking at Stevens at the top there, fastest lap 1:51. But not the fastest by any stretch of the imagination compared to some of the other guys that are in the top 10. The likes of Stevens in the 150s, but Slater's done a 149, but he's still sat down there, obviously, in 9th place, just because the consistency hasn't been there tonight, unfortunately. So a couple of incidents and obviously having to dodge a few hazards on the track here at Snetterton has been a real challenge as we follow Nick Alexander down Hamilton now in the final stages of this race.
That might be getting quite stressful for Alexander, knowing he's got O'Shaughnessy just behind him. One small mistake from Alexander and that will be him out of the heat as he takes a slightly wide line there, which is not what you want coming onto a big straight, because O'Shaughnessy is nearly within drafting range here and that might really help him catch up.
Second a lap quicker than last lap at the moment, so this is a whole heap of pressure for Alexander, and there's a couple of tenths just chewed out there as Alexander gets a little bit slow to the right-hander. We will see what comes of this, but this is what we love about the Porsche Cup racing in these heats. It really goes right down to the last lap in a lot of situations, and once again we're seeing that here in the consolidation race with a lot of our drivers really pushing each other to the limits. And there it is, there's the moment you were waiting for. It looks like Nick Alexander dropping down. Herbert's managed to get ahead into 10th position there, and that gets him through with only less than a minute to go. Nick Alexander will be kicking himself for that little incident. But look, Holloway, I think, has also just had an incident in P3. Let's just go back to that replay of Nick Alexander here. And yeah, just getting a little bit too deep into the late stage of the race and onto the grass. Now, Holloway has dropped down to 6th. Let's go and see the replay of what happened to Adam Holloway. Just a bit too deep there, is it, Chris? Maybe, or is it just... Oh no, he's just...
Exit
Yeah,
again.
we've
We've
seen
seen
that one.
that so much today. Oh, yep. Great minds think alike there.
Was that the original or the remake? Who knows? We've seen that move a few times. Now, here's Kershaw. Just Masters dropping down the order a little bit now as Kershaw managed to make way up to P2. So great little replay angle we were able to get there of that happening. So, and is that Rendell going off track there into the barrier? I don't
He
know
has
what
still
caused
got
that.
a good gap, so if he can nurse that car to the finish, this is going to be close. I don't know if Alexander's going to be aware that that's happened.
I don't think that it's going to really make much of a difference here, is it? With we're into the end of the consolidation now, so what he's got to do. Oh, Martin Rendell getting incredibly wide out. He's just going to try and get it round the end of the race. We've got a checkered flag out by the looks of it. 4 corners to go. Can he just nurse it across the line? The gap behind him, 2.5 seconds. I think he's going to be okay on this occasion, Chris. Rendell getting lucky there, possibly. And we've got Stevens there as your winner this evening, and Kershaw coming in second and Masters in third. And it looks like Rendell is going to make it round the circuit, hopefully, with only 1.9 behind him there. With Herbert just chasing behind, but not quite able to get that overtake in the last phase of the race.
I kind of hope Nick doesn't watch this back, because if he finds out how close he was to potentially getting into 10th, I would find that incredibly distressing if it was me. But he has driven really well. It's just very unfortunate to have that one instant at exactly the wrong time. You compare it to some of the other drivers, like Slater's been involved in 2 or 3 instances here, but has still been able to qualify. So it's all a matter of timing.
Absolutely, and again, another action-packed heat race there for you this evening. So another 20 minutes of action down, and that was the final race now before we go into the feature. The feature race will be a half-an-hour-long event, which will consist of all of the people who managed to qualify through from the Heat Race 1, Heat Race 2, and consolidation races. We've now got We're going to have a little preview here of the consolidation race results for you. So there you go. At the top there, we've got Stevens as P1. Then we've got Kershaw P2, Masters in third, and Briggs, Franklin, Holloway, and Woods in P7. Then we've got Slater in P8 and Rendell in ninth. Herbert came in 10th, followed by Nick Alexander in 11th. Then we have Rob Sanford in 12th, followed by Steve Hughes, Chris Hitchin, Michael Rowe, Jared Coleman, Rob Armstrong, and Craig Schill. Bit of warm up here from now, Chris. So a chance for the racers the drivers to get back out on track and familiarise themselves with Snetterton one more time before they go into the final round. So we've got 5 minutes here of these guys on track. What we'll do for a few moments now is just have a little watch of some of these guys going around and just get to know what the lines look like. But Chris, I mean, anything in particular that you took away from that consolidation race while we just watched these guys on the warm up?
Yes. If you were in that race and you're now in this warm up, practice that damn Montreal hairpin. For goodness sake, it's been an absolute danger zone this entire time. It's been obviously incredible to watch, but I can't imagine many of the drivers are particularly enjoying going round it, not knowing if you accelerate a fraction of a second too early, that could be a race done. And as we approach the final race now, you're not going to have these second chances that they had in the heat, where you can afford to push maybe just a bit, see what happens. But it'll be interesting to see with the warm-up if this presents an advantage to the drivers that weren't in the consolation race, because they've had time just to relax their nerves a little bit, just to settle back down, and then they've got 5 minutes to get back up to speed with the car, whereas those guys in the consolation race, absolutely no time whatsoever. They're straight back in, heart will be pounding. I mean, especially after the racing we've seen there. Track temperatures at the moment, what are they up to? Up to 36 degrees now, so it's not exactly going to get any easier to keep this car on track. And the mental strain as well on such a technical track. I'd rather be commentating than driving right now, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And driving these things is certainly known to be a challenge. We've seen these Porsche Cup cars prove to be a little bit tricky throughout this session, as you just said, that Montreal hairpin causing a bit of trouble Now, the car itself, a power output of 485 horsepower at 7,500 RPM. It's a 6-speed semi-automatic paddle shift manual transmission, and a weight of about 1.3. Sorry, that's oh God, I can't. The weight is actually missing from my fact sheet. I read it and then it was the wrong one. Fuel delivery is a fuel injection with a naturally aspirated engine. The length of this car is 4.5 meters, so quite a long bit of kit here, and the width almost 2 meters, a wheelbase of 2.4. Raced in more than 20 series around the world, including the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge, the USA Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup and Sport Race, and the FIA Formula World Championship. Porsche 911 GT3 Cup is the most produced and most used GT race car. Great to see us all out here in it this evening with 3.5 minutes of the warm-up done. We've got a minute and a half until the race starts. Chris, I need to just hand over to you for just a minute, if that's okay.
Absolutely no worries. We can just follow these guys in the last stretch of the warm-up. So at the moment we've got James Armstrong's the fastest guy to have set a time. He has set a 1:55, although I'm assuming that will be just an outlap because we were looking at 1:49s and 1:50s for the top guys before then. Yep, we see Gavin Halls has just gone quickest with a 1:48.7 and is followed immediately by Johnny Elia on a 1:49.5. Rob Exelby's our third fast. Oh, no, James Armstrong's just gone into second there. So these look like the top guys at the moment. So yeah, we're following Kane Crawford here as he comes around the hairpin, and then we're going to be into Palmer here. This is turn 3. We've got to be so careful with the balance of this car here as we approach turn 4 with Agostini. We have seen some overtakes in this section, but it's probably better to wait for the Bentley Straight, which will be approaching in 3 corners time. Turn 5 we're approaching here is Hamilton. It's very difficult to balance that, taking the speed through the corner without losing it on exit as we approach the slightly sharper Oggies as Kane's lost it. There we go. That's what happens if you carry too much speed. That's the end of the warm-up.
There we
we're
go.
going to be gridding.
Thank you very much for covering that warm-up section there for us, Chris. So we're going to now go over to the guys gridding up for the feature race. So 30 minutes of racing with all of those who have qualified for the final. Now, hopefully this will be a nice, clean final event for the evening. We've seen a little bit of paint trading throughout the session and a few guys going off track. We've seen a few incidents where drivers got onto the grass and were very much passengers in their own vehicles. Hopefully not too much more of that, but we do know that accidents can happen. Now, a fantastic grid ahead of you here. All of these qualifiers from the previous heat races will be incredibly fighty into this final feature race, of which will be starting very, very shortly. We're just waiting for the final races now to grid up in the form of Crawford, and there we go. Looks like we've got everybody out there on the grid now. So here we go, getting ready for the lights to go out, and we are almost ready to go for this final feature race of the evening, and they're away. And it looks like we've got a great start here from Hornby. Hornby managed to get way ahead off into the distance there, and Hornby doing a great job there. Just behind Halls, just trying to really grab onto the back of him. And we've got Mould and Brittle moving up the order, and Leah, Exelby, Anthony, and Robinson all trading places. We've got Cox dropping down the order possibly a little bit. So that is Crawford as well. I can see that it looks like he might have dropped a couple of places. Ben Crawford, I think, up the order slightly. Sorry, Byron, I think it was Crawford. And then we've also got, look, Cy Anthony really in the mix here. And a lot of these guys really fighting incredibly hard. I'm going to go over to a replay now of Matt Cox going up the outside here. And he gets onto the grass. And that's an unfortunate incident there from Cox. He's having to he's not really managed to get it back on at all there. That is a full off-road experience and dropping a lot of places there, Chris.
He would have been extremely unpopular if he tried to bring that back on track on the approach to the hairpin, because there was no way of doing that safely. If we see Mark Johnson there, oh, and he's collected a car on the exit. Very unfortunate. Looks like that was Mark Johnson, Anthony Franklin, and Chris Roberts are possibly involved with that 3. So they've dropped all the way to the back with Matt Cox, and Chris Wally also seems to have come off somewhere too. He's dropped all the way down. But yeah, Halls is out in the front. He's got nearly a second lead already over Hornby, who's got Dan Moulder Company right behind him, just resuming that battle at the front for him. I mean, there's no gaps bigger than a second in the top 8 already yet, and that's after lap 1, so lots of close racing still to come. James Armstrong in 13th has got the smallest gap at the moment. He's trying to get past Ralph Cullinan. Is he going to be able to do that into the turn 1 or turn 2? He's got plenty of time to catch up. We saw him last round out. Oh, is that Dan Mould as well going wide? There's too much going on, as we might expect on a 30-minute, 30-car Porsche Cup race in Snetterton.
And only 2 minutes in, Chris. It's been absolutely hectic, hasn't it? Yeah. It's like, sorry, I lost you there for a minute, Chris. A little bit of an audio moment for me there, but it looks like after lap 1, we've got quite a few of our drivers in the pits, Chris, by the sounds of it.
Yes, I mean, Cox was unlucky, and then, oh, as we see, Vance Briggs there has had a contact with number 7, which was Herbert O'Shaughnessy, who's really been in the wars these last 2 races. As we go back to Ralph Cullinan again in 13th, he's made up 2 places.
And Stevens under a bit of pressure there as well by Crawford. Well, sorry, that's not Crawford, is it? That's Herbert, sorry, O'Shaughnessy getting very aggressive there. And Stevens just having to try and keep it ahead. 3/10 the gap there between them, and Slater's behind, waiting to pick up the pieces, potentially, if this all goes a little bit the wrong way up. And there's Bathy now putting a lot of pressure on car number 32 ahead of him. Dan Bathy, that's an incredible move there from Dan. Great drive in there, getting it past car number 6, Ovalier. There's a bit of smoke in front. This is absolute wall-to-wall action again in yet another one of these Porsche Cup races. Gavin Hall's really just dancing out into the distance and growing a gap there of 1.1 second to Hornby. And then Mould behind in 3rd position. There's another one to look out for who's going to be, oh look, he's just dropped down the order by the looks of it. Dan Mould down into 5th position. I wonder if he's had an incident. He is off track there by the looks of it on the straight. And Mould now been overtaken by Exelby and Brown and Anthony. This is unworldly sort of results for Mould, absolutely tumbling down. That's a real shame. Hornby, Brittle and Lear at the front now. A bit of breathing room possibly by the looks of it, with a 2-second gap. Then back to Exelby, but look at Stuart Brown there around the outside, and we've got some. Well, we've got a lot of contact there from the drivers, and now everyone having to part the seas and go around them. And there was absolutely nothing you could do about that. That's, oh no, and we've got more contact. That's Brown, and he's picked up Cullinan. That's Cullinan that he's picked up on the recovery from that incident, and that's Cullinan down the order. And Brown, after such a stark defence in the last race, a real shame to see him now in a series of incidents just like that one. That was a real shame.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a bit soft, but I wouldn't say there's too much blame on anyone yet. It's just, you know, they're pushing so hard and there's so many cars on track, and incidents will be inevitable. I think that one on the end that collected Cullinan, it's just an incredibly unfortunate thing where you rejoin and you don't always necessarily know where the cars are around you. But that's not going to be any consolation to Cullinan, who was running quite well up in 15th, I believe.
Here it is now. It looks like he just managed to make his way around the outside of all that nonsense that was going on the hairpin, and then Brown hadn't seen him making his way around, and just yeah, that's where the contact was. That was a shame. Armstrong is past Robinson now by the looks of it, so that's a 5/10 gap back to Robinson, and Armstrong will now be hot on the tail of Mr. Mould ahead of him, car number 5, Dan Mould, who has had a couple of little unfortunate moments that have led him to be a bit further down the order than he would like to be on this feature race. But Armstrong, another one that we would expect to be much higher up the order usually on these Sunday night races. Now, obviously, he was gridded a little bit further back, which has made that he's had to work a bit harder for this evening. Gavin Halls, however, at the front is a man who is also having to work quite hard to try and grow his gap as we go over to him now. Fantastic racing from car 38 of Gavin Halls, we've seen him have some great rounds this evening and great clean racing from Mr. Halls. Now Hornby and Brittle behind, all starting to drop back. You see those times dropping past the 1 second point, where the slipstream really does start to drop off, and then the next nearest people really behind there is Ilya with a 1.0 second gap to Brittle, and but further down the order we've got some serious action here. Here's car number there's Carl Woodine. Oh, there's a load of smoke there. Who's gone off there? That's Dan Mould that's gone off again. We were just watching Dan Mould, and now he's out of the top 10. That's a real shame for Dan. Here's the replay, and it looks like he's just gotten a bit too much pressure from Armstrong, turned it round. That Porsche car just loves the slow speed spin, doesn't it, Chris?
Yeah, and he's done very well to make sure he didn't collect anyone there, possibly learning from some of the other drivers on track. But that's James Armstrong up to 13 positions now. He's up to 7th place.
Brilliant work from James, up to 7th now. We knew that we were going to see him at the order. He finished in 6th in the last feature race. Will he be able to bring himself a little bit further up the order this evening? We will wait and see. Gavin Hall's dancing way ahead into the distance, 1.7 now. But there's a great race. Oh, there goes. We got one off the track there, and Ralph Cullen also off. And then car number 710 there, that is that's Matt Cox now, just going up the inside, capitalising on that incident. He's managed to get it round Cullinan, who's been back onto the grass again. That's not the first time we've seen him caught up there after obviously that incident with Brown before. Let's see what happened here in the replay. Just bumper to bumper action, isn't it?
Yep, 3 doesn't go into 2 like that round a corner, unfortunately.
That's a shame there. Cy Anthony obviously behind there, part of the catalyst for that incident. Maybe we'll go back and have another little look. There's been so many lines here at first corner. Look at everybody really jostling for position, trying to get a look round each other and understanding where they can make up the time. And again, more tyre smoke there into the hairpin of turn 2. And these cars too wide and into the third corner of Palmer's there. That is fantastic racing. And we've got another one turn around. This car number 80. Was that O'Shawnage? Was that Herbert going round? I'm not sure.
Car with named car 80. There's Franklin's 11.
Yeah, there
that
goes
was the
Franklin.
previous incident, yeah.
That's unfortunate there for Franklin as well. Here's car number. Oh, there you go. There's Brown up the inside. Might have been a bit of a committed manoeuvre there from Brown, which has led Oliver Carwadine to be off the track. And oh, there's Slater, I think, getting a bit of a nudge there. And Brown's been turned around again. Oh, no, this is a real shame. Brown's had. Oh, he's driving the wrong way there to spin it round. That was a lot of time being used there, but there goes Stevens now on the outside. There's a lot of incidents happening here in the feature race. All over the back of Stevens there is Herbert, and he's going to go up the inside. Who else is going to try and get involved? That Rendell trying to get involved as well. And there you go, Herbert getting up the inside. Nice manoeuvre there from car number 7, and then 55 they're just dropping back. And we've got another one off the track there.
That's Denny Wood that's gone wide there.
Denny Wood that's gone wide and dropped down a position. Is it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just dropping back there a little bit. Not got the pace there. And car number 97 of Wood there, really fighting hard. Here's Carwadine. Just going to have another look here at car number 8 to see what happened. Yeah, got a bit too deep there and gone onto the green stuff. Unfortunately, maybe damage causing that kind of lack of control, Chris. Not sure.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we've had so many incidents so far that you never know which car's going to be damaged and which one isn't. Other ones in the midfield to pick out. So we've got James obviously taken up 13 places, as has Adam Holloway in 13th, who started 26th. Stephen Kershaw again, I think he liked doing this, started 22nd, he's up to 11th.
And just behind Mr. Crawford, so he'll be pushing hard to try and get himself into that top 10 maybe, to really establish himself in the points for the feature race this evening. So here's Rendell, the victim of a few little incidents this evening, and then he's got Slater behind him. We will see what these guys can do, obviously, in this final very racy bunch that we've got here. Obviously, all in a line. Lots can happen. And Slater starting to push his way up the inside. He's gone for it. And Rendell's managed to turn it around. Oh, no, he's collected another car there, unfortunately.
Mark Johnson, number 34.
Do a lot about. Oh, that's Johnson that's had that incident. That's a shame for Johnson. Just couldn't get out of the way when that spin started to happen. Now, Colin Wynn is in the top 10 and under a bit of pressure here also from Robinson. Colin, we've seen obviously having a great race this evening, up 5 positions, but will you be able to keep that at 5, or will it drop down to 4 with the likes of Robinson behind him keeping that pressure on? There's 3 tenths behind him. And then ahead of Colin is James. So there's a good old gap of about 6 or 7 seconds to James ahead. So this race really is going to be for P8 for quite some time, unless something else happens at the front of the order, which allows obviously Colin to catch up and get himself some more points in the top 5 possibly. It looks like Robinson, though, maybe not quite in contention for a move just yet as they go down the pit straight into Riches. How many lines are there around here? We don't know. We're seeing so many people try to make daring overtakes there as they head up now into Montreal. Let's see a little bit further down the order. We've got Vance Briggs, who is up 7 places at the minute, Chris, and he is trying to put some pressure on Stevens at the moment.
Yeah, Vance has been in the wars quite a lot. He's been not necessarily the cause of, but certainly involved in a lot of incidents in the 2 races he's been involved in so far. So hopefully he's going to have a nicer, cleaner one here. Up 7 positions, as you say, so far, and lapping quicker than quite a few of the guys in front of him as well.
We're 12 minutes into this feature race now. Chris Wally is sticking to the back of Brown here. Brown, who we've seen in a number of incidents. I don't think there's a part of that car that isn't probably dented or scratched at the moment. But Wally will be looking to see if he can make his way around. As Stevens now still under threat by the looks of it from Briggs. Briggs using a bit more of the track there, a bit more of the curb than Stevens. Will we be able to see a manoeuvre? But not to forget Slater behind there, who we've seen being quite competitive throughout these rounds. Obviously, having taken a bit of contact in this feature race, he will be a little bit further down the order than he would like to be at this point. Gavin Hall's gap ahead is now about 3.5 seconds to Hornby, but Hornby, however, the gap to 3rd position behind him to Bridle is only half a second now, Chris. So I think that we're going to see a real fight in our hands for P2 as Hornby maybe starts to tire over the course of this race and Bridle begins to close that gap up, only 4.5 tenths now.
Yeah, and I reckon Bridle will probably have the confidence in himself to think, I can catch Halls, or at least I can give him a challenge. And I mean, besides that, there's also the fact that as much as he's been unchallenged so far, almost everyone's made a mistake. So what's to say that Gavin won't? Although currently he's really taking advantage of the fact that Baxter Jones and Blackwell Chambers are dropping this week, making sure he's going to win his 2nd race in a row the way things stand. I really hope for his sake I've not just cursed him though.
Well, yeah, as you say, the previous round, a lot of pressure at the front for Halls with changing a lot of places with Baxter Jones and Chambers. But we're going to go over to Stevens now because there's an equally close battle happening here at the moment for what I believe now is P17 and 16 with Briggs ahead of Stevens now. It looks like he's managed to get that manoeuvre done, and now Slater looking to capitalise on the pace that he's got and see if he can get it around Stevens as well. Is he going to be brave enough to do it here? I don't think so. It's far too tight here. And with Cox behind him, he doesn't want to make any daring moves in case the car number 710 behind him tries to just dart round the inside or the outside. We're going to go over to Crawford though, because it looks like Kane Crawford in P10 is under some pressure from Kershaw behind, but also ahead of Crawford we've got Robinson. So a little bit of interesting manoeuvring maybe from these guys, and then Mould also, who will want to be involved in the action. Car number 5 you can see at the back of these 3 looking to get involved, and then there's car 25 trying to get ahead of Mr. Crawford. Brown, I think, has now gone off track again further down. His race goes from bad to worse. Very unfortunate for him. Gavin Hall sets a 149 at the front of the order, and a lot of the other guys now setting 150s and 151. So a real variation of lap times as we see Michael Hornby. Now he's being passed by Bridle by the looks of it, and he's going to try and make that manoeuvre back against Bridle, putting him under immense pressure to see if he can get him to make a mistake into that hairpin.
Yeah, I think that Bridle must have got a very good exit out of Murray's because he was already alongside along the main straight there, and that's where we saw. I think that's where we saw the move happen before we'd even got there.
Well, maybe we'll get back onto that in a moment, but at the moment it looks like we've got plenty of other things to be watching up and down the order, with Kershaw now under pressure from Mould, only 2 tenths behind him. Mould, obviously, we know is quick and belongs at the front of the order, but I believe that Kershaw now dropping back a little bit from Crawford ahead of him, but Crawford trying to put a bit of pressure. Oh, that a good pass there, but he's going to lose it though. The fight back there, incredible work from Kershaw and Crawford, keeping it nice and clean as they keep trading places throughout the mid stage of this P Cup race. Anthony Franklin has crashed off camera. We'll go to that in a few moments. But Dan Mould now looking to try and get involved. He's keeping right to the back. Oh, I think he's just got a little bit out of control there. And he's going to drop back. Is Holloway going to be able to get it round Mould as he tries to build his pace back up? I don't think so. We'll see if we can see Mould now. Let's see what's happening. He's on the inside looking to have to be defensive. I think he's safe for the moment, isn't he? Holloway's not going to get him round any time soon. Now let's see if he can close that gap back up to Kershaw ahead of him and put him back himself back in a fight, maybe to get into the top 10 in the last 15 minutes of this race.
Yeah, Dan had been very patient on that infield section, but it's just that penultimate corner before the back straight, and he's lost it, and that costs you so much. And it's not the first time as well, because we saw him go off on the main straight earlier in the race. That's how he lost all of these positions, and it's really the last place you want to be losing that straight line speed is on the two longest straights of the.
Now, it's probably worth mentioning that further up the field as well, we've got some close battles. But oh, well, look at this. Matt Cox now behind Slater, really starting to close up that gap. Will Matt Cox be able to do something into this straight? I don't think that's going to be an opportunity, but look at the amount of damage we've got on some of these Porsche cars, these dents and war wounds from earlier laps. And the gap across the midfield is so tight, and Matt Cox now looking at the outside. Can he get in for a tighter entry? He actually qualified for P3 and he's down 16 places, and Slater's getting all over the place. Matt Cox is going to look to move down the inside. Can he make it happen? No, not quite close enough on this occasion. Slater gets lucky and manages to hold it together. There was definitely a lot of wobbling around going on those Porsche Cup cars in the background of that track cams 22 angle that we were able to see just there. And oh, it looks like Slater's just struggling. Oh, and he's spun it round. He's spun it round. Yeah. We've seen it again. Another one of those slow Porsche Cup spins. They're almost anticlimactic, aren't they? Because you kind of see them going, but they kind of just fizzle out to a lot of nothing, really, Chris.
Yes. I think to an uninitiated viewer, they look very unimpressive. But if you've ever had to drive this car, you would realise just how easy it is to do that. And you see the very, very top drivers still make mistakes like that occasionally, because this car is just on a knife edge the whole time. And these guys have now driven, depending if they've been on, say if they've been in both the previous heats, they're now done up to an hour of driving in this car this evening. That is mentally and physically exhausting.
Absolutely, and you could argue that this Porsche Cup car is like a real volatile version of a GT3 car almost, isn't it? In terms of the lack of ABS and the fact that it can really just throw you around at any point. And there's car number 22 under pressure on the inside there from car 56. Who was that just went off there? That was
Hornby that's gone, I think.
Hornby that's gone off. That is a shame. Now Hornby is going to be dropping down the order. He's in sixth now from what was second position previously. He's really struggled in the second half of the race, and that's a shame. With now Bridle now right up the order, and Bathy, look at Bathy now 4/10 behind. He's not one that we thought was going to be contending for P2 at this point in the race.
I think Bathy's actually got the fastest lap of the race with a 48.82. He's 700ths of a second quicker than Gavin Hall's fastest lap.
And Gavin Hall's obviously with that 7-second gap up ahead really doesn't have to worry too much about what's going in behind him. All he needs to worry about is keeping it on the tarmac for the next 10.5 minutes that we have left here on this feature race. Now we'll try and keep an eye on that fight. Chris, I'll just go over to the comments on the Twitch for a minute and just have a little read of what we've got on here. So we've got a few comments in here. Gavin Halls is my paternity at work. Well, that's a great comment there. Reminds me of GT3 at Monza, says Chris Hitch. What else have we got up in here? F to Sean, trying to keep the track of these. Yeah, that's from Chris, just saying. I think a big respect to Sean for obviously keeping up with all of these battles that we've got on the screen tonight. A lot of things going on up and down the order, so keeping track of everything that we've got going on here in the feature race is quite the tough one, must admit. Hey Chris, I think even from a commentator's point of view, there's almost too much to say in a short race.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure how there was ever a chance you were going to completely solo commentate on the previous round, because I mean, a half-hour race on its own would probably be enough, but you had the what was it, be 40 plus, yes, another hour before this half-hour rate of racing to cover, so you did incredibly well to try that out. Probably ably assisted by Tim.
The trick is that you have to convince your secondary or color to cover you for 5 minutes between the consolidation and the feature while you go to the toilet. That's the trick, and then you can survive the whole thing. So yeah, fantastic, really, to have a bit of help here. And thanks very much for joining us here. We're going to go over to Dan Mould now. We're going to talk about racing and not our strife. Dan down 7 places. He's in 11th at the minute. Be looking to just drag himself a little bit further up the order now into the points if he can, or to get some more points if he can. There's obviously points scored across the all of our finalists, but Kip Stevens has gone off by the looks of it, and now down in 20th. Let's see if we can get a little replay of that. We're here with car 55 now, and what happens to Kip? It's the hairpin again, and that slow speed turn on the P-Cup proving to be an absolute curse. It's almost like watching the McLarens, isn't it? When we had that outing in the GT3s one time on outing at Alton, even, Chris, where we saw them all turning around in the McLaren towards the mid-late stage of the race, an absolute death trap, very much like these Porsche Cup cars. And this battle we've got here now is for 10th position. We've got Kane, Crawford, Dan Mould, and then behind them Kershaw and Holloway.
It does seem like British circuits love to try and destroy the morale of all their drivers by being incredibly technical. I wonder how the radicals on Thursday at Brands Hatch will cope.
Oh, those radicals that we can't help but mention whenever we get a chance to. Yeah, that is a Thursday night league that we are running here at iRacing UK. If you're interested, come over to the Discord and make sure you sign up if you're not there. Obviously, we'll give you some links to the Facebook at the end of this session. Now, as we stay on board now with our drivers, we're going to follow Matt Cox, who's down 13 places in 16th at the moment. Now, Matt Cox very, very close here to Herbert O'Shaughnessy at the front and the P15 here, and really trying to put him under pressure to see if he can make a manoeuvre in this late stage of the race. With only 7 minutes left to go, there's everything to play for, but we're going to have to go up to Kane Crawford, I think, in a minute, because the battle is really heating up the order. But this is incredibly close here, with Matt Cox now running it around the outside if he can. Look at this, side by side, neck and neck, and will he be able to do it on the outside? I think he's not quite going to be there, is he? And Herbert now managing to stay ahead in P15, but he's got a great run here, Matt Cox. He's staying right behind him. And I think up the order, we've got a couple of crashes, so these guys might actually capitalise and gain a couple of places. A bit of smoke there from the accident. And here's Matt Cox still chasing incredibly hard. He's sticking to the back of O'Shaughnessy here. Only 2 tenths between these guys as they go into the final sectors. The second sector of the lap. They're on the Bentley straight now as they head now into Nelson. We'll go back to that Crawford crash now. Let's see what happened to Kane Crawford. Is it going to be another slow Porsche Cup spin, or is it going to be Dan Mould getting too feisty into there? And Kane was very cautious, but unfortunately took a whole heap of front bumper in the back end there from Dan Mould. Real shame there.
Yeah, Cox is not able to get past O'Shaughnessy yet. He was being very patient. Cox seemed to have the pace advantage at exactly the wrong point of the track, because you can't really get round on turns 3, 4, 5. And then he just didn't seem to be able to get the run on the Bentley straight on the back. And again, the same here. He doesn't seem to really have a run on O'Shaughnessy, who, to be fair, is not a slouch himself either. He's a quick driver.
Snetterton proving to be a challenging overtaking second. And oh, look, there's O'Shaughnessy getting a little bit out of touch there, I think, getting a bit out of shape. And I think that it looks to me like Matt Cox now managed to get up the inside there. He's done it.
Another victim of the hairpin. That's 2.
There's Dan Mould off as well. Dan Mould off. That is a real shame there for Dan Mould. So Cox right behind Crawford now. Look, he's going for 13th place now. And Crawford has not got very much pace there, has he? And Cox is going to look to the inside. Not quite bold enough, but I think he's got absolutely no hope of getting it round him there. I guess Matt Cox is struggling potentially. I think he's just had a bit of contact, possibly from Mould, isn't it? So we'll keep an eye on this fight here between cars number 19 and 710 here, with only 5 minutes to go of this Porsche Cup race. I think this is going to be absolutely... Bathy now 7:10. Can we be heard on the stream at the moment,
Uh,
Chris? I'm not sure. We
Sean
can.
appears to be back.
Okay. Stream is
The
back at the
last
moment.
last minute we can take you through. I'm trying to curse Gavin as much as I can so we can get some action at the front, but he is driving superbly. So I think we've got another winner here. But Bridle and Bathy still battling second and third.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they're still going for it. So 6/10 between those guys at the moment. We've still got, I believe, Kane Crawford also having a bit of a fight in P14 uh, with Dan Mould behind him. Dan, who's obviously seen have a few incidents through this. Oh, and there's
Oh,
some
big
more
incident.
contact into the final
Mould and
portion. Dan
Crawford.
Mould. There's going to be a protest for that, I reckon. That was an incredibly brave dive. Oh, we've got cars really drifting around that turn one at the moment, haven't we? Lots of people just really fighting hard into the final portion to this race and having to try and avoid the incidents. And here's Vance Briggs now as we go over to Bridle, who is now fighting for the P2, P3 with Dan Bathy and car number 91 behind him there in third. So let's see what can be done here. And it looks like Dan Bathy got a great little bit of an exit there, and Bridle struggling there. He's going to get it down the inside. Fantastic work here from car number 91. They're still side by side, though. This is absolutely not over yet, with Bridle now pushing himself back up into P2. This is going to come right down to the wire, Chris. We've got Dan Bathy now, and this is the checkered flag that is down. So let's see if Bathy can now maintain this, really being chased hard by Bridle. He doesn't want to give up that P2, and they're right here on the final straight, and that is going to be a P2 for Bathy. Fantastic racing into the final lap.
Excellent job from both of them. James Armstrong, it appears, has spun in P7. He is currently not moving. We might be able to just see him come into shot in the background
I
there.
think he
It
is,
doesn't
yeah.
seem to have affected him.
Yeah, I think he's
And
just managed to get
there's
round.
Gavin Halls taking the checker flag. Oh, he spun it. Poor James. He's had quite an eventful afternoon or evening.
Well, he's made it into the final through whatever means he's managed to to make it through with the various incidents we've seen. But again, another sort of mid top 10-ish, mid low top 10 finish for James. I think he was sixth last time, and here we go. A few more of the guys now just coming over the finish line. There's Kershaw, Wood, Cox coming over, and then we should see Mould there also in the background. Mould, who we've seen have a few incidents this evening, unfortunately, but good to see him still make it over the line there in 14th. Then we've got O'Shaughnessy in 17th, Johnson, Anthony, and Crawford in 20th. The amount of crashes in this race did, in fact, crash Sean's computer, according to the comments. And you're probably right. I think there was finally just so much Porsche Cup action, we just couldn't contain it anymore. He clicked so many camera buttons that it just couldn't take it anymore. But nonetheless, some fantastic racing this evening. Whether or not you got to see all of it, 90% of it, 80% of it, or whatever you got to see, based on what was on your screens this evening, it was a great set of heat races. I think we lost 3 laps to that little technical issue, but nonetheless, not to worry. It was a fantastic set of heats, lots of action, lots of incidents, unfortunately, this evening. But here are your results, Chris.
So yes, we've got Gavin Halls. He's had a very, very calm week. He has finished in first with a 10-second gap to Dan Bathy, and we saw that battle at the end between him and Chris Bridle. So they are second and third. Johnny Elia in fourth has done quite well to get his 40 points there. And then Rob Exelby, quite a quiet race from Rob. We've not really spoken about him much, but there he is in fifth. Good result for him. Michael Hornby in sixth. They must have been quite close at the end there. James Armstrong still managed to finish seventh despite that spin. He's recovered quite well. Colin Wynn in eighth, that's also very good for him. Adam Holloway ninth, Martin Robinson 10th, Stephen Kershaw, the place gainer of the evening, in 11th, Denny Wood in 12th, Matt Cox recovered to 13th, Dan Mould has sort of crashed his way down into 14th, so he's actually done quite well considering how many incidents he was involved in. Chris Wally 15th, and then rounding up the top 20, we've got Ralph Cullinan, Herbert O'Shaughnessy, Mark Johnson, Cy Anthony, and Kane Crawford.
So that is your order for the evening. Some great racing. Again, we've seen there's the points obviously for you on the screen that have been gained tonight. We won't worry about too much of the championship order just yet. We might be able to get that on the screens for you in a moment, possibly. But one thing that we will do is just say a very, very big thank you, obviously, for joining us this evening. This has been obviously the second round of the Porsche Cup, and it's been great to have all of the viewers here with us on Twitch and YouTube this evening, sending us in your questions and dealing obviously with the little moments that we have in these broadcasts occasionally. So make sure you give us a follow and a like on the respective platforms, and obviously smash the subscribe button on both, and make sure you support future content and broadcasts from the IR UK team. Now, just looking ahead a little bit, the next community race is going to be the Radical League on Thursday at Brands Hatch. So that is going to be an interesting, risky, radical bit of action there in the Kent-based circuit. Last race out of Watkins Glen was predictably full of action, with great battles up and down the field. Now, looking to the weekend, we've got more community racing action in the form of the Community Challenge League, which features a different format